Hi, welcome back to Strategic Planet. Today I'm going to give you an insight into NVivo 12 and how you can do some thematic or content analysis using this particular platform. So once you've opened up NVivo 12, this is what you will see. On the left-hand side, you can see recent projects, or if you've saved a project and it's in a specific folder, you can find it here. But for our example, we're going to create a new project. So all we have to do is click on blank project, give it a name, and here we can see the start screen. There's a link to the website, hence you've got the cookie policy in there. I'm just going to click OK for that. What we've got is very similar to NVivo 11, but there are some subtle differences. Now, when you look at NVivo, it can be quite daunting because there is quite a lot of information and there's so much that you can do with the platform, like many of the other platforms. But all I'm going to do today is demonstrate how you can carry out thematic or content analysis using very simple steps so that you can at least embark on a piece of qualitative research. But before we do that, we'll just look at the main screen. So you've got your tabs at the top, and then as you click on it, you'll see the ribbons changes underneath. On the left-hand side, you've got some more information about the various options that you have within NVivo. We're essentially going to be focusing on files and nodes, which will also be linked here and here. Then this is where your files will be kept, and here will be your main, if you look at output data for the information. It does start off, if it's new, with this start tutorial, so it's worth having a quick look at, but for our purposes we'll leave it as blank, or we'll leave that as it is. So the first thing you might want to do is to create the data from the semi-structured interviews that you have carried out. So what I would do is click on Create, and you're going to create a document. So the document you will name. What I usually do is start off with the project that I'm embarking upon. So I'll just call this test. And then the participant number. You can then put in a description and save it. Now, the reason why I do this is that it depends on where you're actually saving the file. But once I've got, if you've done loads of semi-structured interviews for a variety of projects, I'll always know that it's for this particular project, and that is the pseudonym that I've given to the first participant that I've interviewed. Let's leave it at that. I'll click OK. And what we can see is that here's my first file, and on the left hand side that is the file now open. So you could, if you wanted to, use this as your transcription area. So this would be where you would type in the transcript for the semi-structured interview that you've just embarked upon. As an example, and you can continue that till you've completed. Then if you wanted to add another participant, I'll just go Create again. And then we've got participant 2, and I can start to put in So you can see very quickly you can type in the information as such. Now, What I do, however, is I transcribe the data into I transcribe the data into a Word document. So if you've done that, what we want to do is import that document. And we click on the Import tab at the top, and you can see here there's a load of different platforms that you can import information from, but there isn't a document here that says Word. All you need to do is click on Data, which has the files, and I can upload that information one at a time. So we're going to import that. You can, again, give it some more information. And then as we can see, my list of files is starting to grow. If I double click on that, it opens up as a third tab here. So this is part of the information that I have transcribed, and I'm now going to want to create my themes or codes. What you'll notice is that usually in the very beginning I have some descriptive information about the participant. So this is a male, 73 years old, has type 2 diabetes. I would know this, you wouldn't necessarily pick this up. Was diagnosed in 2008, white British, location is in Bridlington, is retired, and is not a healthcare professional. These are some of the key pieces of information that I needed to glean when I did my information. I don't need to code this. The coding really starts here, where I want to review the data and start to give it a code or a node, as is known in NVivo. So usually I have my question and then the answer from the participant. So what type of diabetes health education course have you heard of? So the individual has responded. I can't remember what it was called because it was 4 years ago, but it was very helpful. It was run by a diabetic nurse at the hospital, included going around the supermarket to look at food to see what impact it would have. So you are now looking at this output and deciding what theme should I give it. You will find that when you do a content analysis or a thematic analysis piece of research, the output that you will have could be quite different to the output that your colleague or somebody else doing a very similar piece of research. But you can moderate the information if you're working as a team, so that you can bring the team together and say, what do you think this would be? What do you think that should be? So you can try and build up a similar sort of format. But I'm not going to go through that of doing thematic analysis as a theme. We'll just do it individually. So I've looked at this and I'll now need to give it some sort of output. So let's highlight that first sentence, and again you can highlight words, sentences, paragraphs. It's totally up to you. In this case I've highlighted a particular sentence and I want to give it a theme. So I right click on my mouse and then I type in or click on code. And you can see here a pop-up will appear, and because this is the first time I've done it, it'll be a new code. So I'm going to put diagnosed. Then hit OK. The next sentence, I would say, I'm going to give it a new code again. So right click, code, new code. delivered by DN. Now, there are some acronyms that I've used here, which you will know yourself, because obviously you want to try and get the theme or the final code that you use as short as possible. So this was delivered by Diabetic Nurse. And you can, if you want to, add more themes to that paragraph or sentence or word or groups of words that you've highlighted. So in this case, I'm also going to call it carb counting. Now, you might be looking at it and thinking, how on earth did you get carb counting out of that? I'm actually adopting a constructivist point of view, so I understand a bit more about the concepts of diabetes than maybe some of you, and one of the things I do know is that the diabetic nurse will be taking the individuals around the supermarket to talk about foods and to get them to try and think about the amount of carbs that they will be consuming if they purchased and consumed certain food types. So that's why I've used the theme carb counting in this. So when you're setting up your process for identifying themes, you need to identify whether it's a totally grounded theory approach where you know nothing about the subject and you're just trying to build it up from scratch, or if you adopt a constructive point of view where you have some sort of background and you're building it upon some sort of theory and knowledge that you're aware of, that you can associate the output with the conversation that has taken place with the participant. Probably in most cases, particularly my students, when they're doing this, they will use some sort of constructivist point of view and maybe build it upon the theories that they're aware of. So let's look at the process and continue with it. So how did you hear about this diabetes course? So again, using a constructivist point of view, I'm going to right-click and code that as marketing by surgery, because again, some of the points that I'm trying to establish is that who was it that promoted the course to the patient. In this case, it was by the surgery. I'm going to, in this case, sort of overlap. I've gone on here, right-clicked, DN was great. I'll come back later on and start to explain what you would need to do if you wanted to rename or readjust some of the codes that you've developed. Okay, now say for instance you've done a whole load of coding and you've gone to answer the door or made yourself a cup of tea or coffee, and you come back and you're looking at the data you've got here and you're thinking, where am I? Where did I last stop? The last thing you want to do is recode something that you've already coded. Well, the thing to do is to go back up to your ribbon on the document ribbon and look for coding stripes and highlight. So if we click on highlight and click on all coding, what you'll now see, these are the words that I have coded. And if I click on coding stripes and then click on all coding, what we can see down here, these are the nodes that I've created. So we've got linked to the data in the files, our interviews, that you have transcribed. You could, if you wanted to, go back and jump at the nodes, and you can see these are the nodes that have been created. So this was one from one file, so that's the file in question, participant 1, and these are the numbers that have taken place. So we'll go back here. What I'm going to do now is, rather than go through the whole process of coding the information, I'm going to fast forward and come back and upload a whole range of information, which you will see what will happen when you get towards the end of the process. Okay, quick change, and we're back now. I've now completed 3 semi-structured interviews, and I've coded them all. And in the third one here, what you can see is I've got 11 codes and 13 references. So what does that mean? If we look to our right, you can see the codes here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is not coding, it's just the coding density, so ignore that. And then you can see there are 2 additional ones, which are, that is the same as that, injections and carb counting. So that's where these figures come from. So we've highlighted and coded all the information that's needed. What we want to do now is go to our nodes. So here are our nodes, and just so that you can see what we've got in the nodes, I'll go right down to the very end. If I click on that, that will appear within the box, and that shows me that I've got one node here which says I lost a stone in 4 weeks, which is a bit unusual, as I usually pile on the weight and I'm on holiday. You can see I've just gone over when I've highlighted the next bit, but don't worry about that. So that's the one code of weight loss that I picked up. You could, if you wanted to, if you click on the actual link of the participant or the name of the file that's associated with it, it'll take you right into it and show you the sentence or the context in which it was done, where you've got the item there. So that's that. Now, the key thing we want to do here is to review our nodes. So we've put a load of data in, and you're going to assess it to see whether the information you think is right, whether it needs renaming, whether you want to combine things in there, whether you want to delete anything in there. Say, for example, the way I've got meter here, I want to rename that. So that's quite simple. You right click and go to node properties, and then I'll just type in the new name. Oops. Diabetes meter, and that changes that particular item. Let's say I wanted to delete that. I would go right click and then delete, and then it will disappear. What we've got is 3 elements which can be expanded. So if I close this and close this, you'll actually see the files, the references, created on, created by whom, modified, modified by whom, and it's sorted in alphabetical order. When I want that, I can change that to go descending, so way at the top, or I can sort it by references, that at the top. Let's go back to having it this way here. Now, I'm looking at my data. I'm going up and down, analysing. I'm thinking, actually, thrush, tired, need a toilet. They could all be part of a new code, which I will call symptoms. So what do I need to do? I need to create this new code, and to do that, we go back to the top, click on create a node. We'll call it symptoms. That will appear. Oops, I'll just undo, did that wrong. Create node, that should be in the parent hierarchy. And now you can see that's appeared here. Actually, that was probably a good example to show what you would do if you make a mistake. Just go back and click undo, and that's fine. So I've got symptoms in here, but there are no files or no references associated with it. So we want Tide and Thrush plus need the toilet to be included within there. So what I do is I highlight, place my mouse over the node circle, left click, and then drag it into it. This takes a little bit of getting used to, because what should happen is that as you drag it out, you get the no entry sign, and then you drag it in, and that's created the hierarchy that you need. So do the same again. Not quite as intuitive as you might want it to be in some of the drag and drop processes that are available in other programs, but it's something that you will get used to. And then finally, there we go. But you can see that I've got 3, 3, and nothing. What do we do? Well, if I right click on symptoms now, you can see at the bottom here I've got aggregate coding from children. So if I click on that, that will expand that to 2 and 3. But you're saying, oh, there's 3 there. Why is that 2? Well, what that means is, if I now click on this, I've got participant 3, where the data has come from, participant 1, where this has come from, and participant 1, where this comes from. So what this means is that these are where the files have come from. That's come from 1 file. This has all come from 2 files, participant 1 and participant 3. So participant 2 wasn't involved, whereas this is the reference number that is out there. So that is how you do that. Now, what happens if you make another mistake and I put veggie in there, which shouldn't be in there? Now, if you've just done this, all I need to do is create undo, and it will make it disappear. But let's say you've saved, or you've gone through the process a few times and you've lost count of where you are, and you don't want to click on the undo. You can't just drag it out and put it back outside. It just doesn't work. What you need to do is go onto veggie, which shouldn't be there, right click, and then go to create as a code, nodes, and then call it the same thing. You can call it the same thing. And what we see, I've got veggie there and veggie here, both 1 and 1, and in this case, veggie is from participant 2, a vegetarian, and step by step 1. Not quite sure what that means, but that is where it's come from. And if I click on this one, you can see it's exactly the same. So I can now delete that. I know it's a bit of a faff in having to do this, but that's how you remove a node from a hierarchy. Well, that's how that's the way I would remove. There may be another way which I'm not sure about, which some of you may have discovered yourselves. So what I'm going to do now is magic away and come back with a complete list of reviews that I've done, so that you don't have to sit through the whole process again. So back in a second. So here we're back again. I've aggregated the nodes that I think should be aggregated. So I've got the following in place. As I mentioned earlier on, you can sort the themes accordingly. We will want to sort it by reference in descending order. So when we go to the top, oh, this has not been aggregated, so better just do that. Forgot to do that. you can see that my output is as follows, and the core themes that I've identified from the semi-structured interviews, albeit only 3, are eating, blood levels and symptoms, and this would be essentially the findings that you have identified. The reality is that you will have done a load more interviews, and that could have either been through a theoretical saturation approach, which means that you continue with the interviewing until you find nothing new, or some form of purposive sampling where you've identified the discrete number of individuals that you're going to talk to, and then you produce your codes accordingly. So for the output that you would produce in your findings in your research document, you would say that the core themes identified are eating, blood levels and symptoms. You would then go in and provide some more rich sources of information, rich data, by potentially, let's say, picking out quotes that have been identified. So I can click on any of these items and pick out some quotes. So in this case, I would copy this. Initially, I had no understanding of carb counting, but I eventually stabilized and managed to get my HbA1c to 7, and last year decided to have a baby. So that could be a quote that you could put in, and this would be from participant 3, and you put a load more to build a picture as to what's really going on in this world of diabetes, or whatever piece of research that you're looking at. So that's the simple element of, or in theory the simple element, the process that you would embark upon when you're doing your thematic or content analysis. Something else that you may want to include in your report could be what's known as a word frequency. So if I click on that, what you'll see is a query performer appear. Now you could leave that as standard, and this is standard, or you can reduce this. This displays the number of words. Obviously, the more that you have, the difficulty, or the harder it will be to read the output. And you're probably still wondering what you're talking about. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to reduce that to 500. I'll leave this at 3, and then I'll run the query. So these are the number of words that have appeared. So that's the word length, the count. And if you look on the right hand side, you can see a tab called word cloud. It might be a useful thing to add in. Now you will see that the minimum length 3, which means that words like eat, well, and actually well's 4, what am I on about? Words like eat, day are included. If I were to increase that to 5, that would disappear. Run it again. We can see a slightly different picture. So diabetes obviously dominates. This is different to the themes that we identified, because these are literally a count of the words from the semi-structured interview that's taken place. Still useful, or can be useful, in identifying what the main subject area are. So you can see diabetes, blood, HbA1c. Years maybe not too relevant. You do need some sort of, I suppose, pragmatic view on some of the things that is presented here. But in general, the big words, as you would expect, will jump out at you. So, in summary, what we've done so far is looked at how to create a document if you want to embed the data within NVivo itself, or import the information as a Word document. We've looked at the different files that we have and the different nodes. The recommendation is to aggregate the data, having looked and cleaned the information that you have analysed. Before that, we've also looked at what you can do by drilling into the particular nodes, or looking back at the files, how to create a coding strip and highlights. And finally, we finished on looking at the word cloud, which we identified through Explore. So hopefully you found that interesting. It was fairly quick what I presented here, but there was only really an introduction into thematic or content analysis using NVivo, particularly NVivo 12, because the output that you've got here is a little bit different to the other options. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to click on the like button and maybe even subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much. I'll speak to you again soon.